Hey, it's Jay. I just wanted to make a nice little shout out to XWOOG for letting us use their song, Musty. Make sure to check out their Bandcamp and YouTube, which is listed in the description below. They're really fucking funny and talented, and it's amazing that they let us use their song. Anyways, without further ado, the podcast is about to start in 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome to the Proletarian Cast. We are now rebranding as a woke communist podcast.
Oh my fucking god!
Hello, comrades. Welcome. We're ditching the movie stuff because there are way much more important issues out in the world right now. So we're going to discuss how we can start a new revolution. I don't know where to go from now, so bit is over now. Speaking about capitalism and how much of a disease it is and how it ruins art, let's talk about Stranger Things.
Oh, fuck. I guess that's fair.
Yeah, ever since last week when we recorded, what episode was it when we mentioned Stranger Things? Or was it the Hubie Halloween episode?
Probably.
Yeah. Well, I just kept thinking about all the shit I just want to say about Stranger Things because I have a lot of opinions on it.
Consider this a therapy session. Let it out. I recently noticed, I think I knew this before, but I re-noticed that you own Stranger Things Season 1.
I own Stranger Things Season 1 on Blu-ray.
And you also have a poster of it on your wall, which I didn't even notice.
Okay, look. When I bought the Blu-ray, there was a special offer at Target where it was like, oh, there's a poster inside, right? And I was like, okay, this is a nice little bonus. And it was the Season 2 poster, and I was like, oh, this is not what I wanted. Not that I dislike Season 2. I actually think it's pretty all right. But we'll get to that when we get to that.
But I was surprised, but then I was like, at least you don't have Season 3.
Yeah. We'll get to that. So I think we should preface this that I fucking love Season 1 of Stranger Things. I think it's terrific. I think it's such a good teleplay. Teleplay? Yeah, that's the right term. I think the narrative is really just fun. It has a lot of nice fucking twists and turns. And it's just so fucking effective. And the acting is incredible.
Rest in peace, Barbara. Is that her name?
Yeah, that was her name, Barb. Wow,
Barb.
That was a really old meme you just referenced there.
Well, she was the only character I really cared about, and then she died and never came back, really? So that was fun.
But,
that really pissed me off.
Really?
I'm not even gonna lie.
Yeah, Nancy's kind of a bitch for...
Yeah, that whole thing was so, I just remember being so mad.
I think we should preface this by going through a little history of Stranger Things. Why not? Okay. So I remember, this is going to make me sound like a fucking hipster, but I remember fucking watching the Stranger Things Season 1 trailer when it dropped. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, this looks really fucking interesting and cool. Mm-hmm. And I remember being really excited for the release date. And I remember sitting in my living room and then just pressing power on my Apple TV, going to Netflix, and then just binging Stranger Things the day it dropped. I want to say I got a bit over midway through that season. I remember thinking to myself, this is so fucking cool, right? And Stranger Things was released, I want to say, at the peak of Hollywood marketing 80s aesthetic / nostalgia towards us. And then I feel like if you dropped Stranger Things Season 1 right now, I don't think it would have been the phenomenon it was when it came out. Stranger Things is such a thing of its time in that brief moment in the 2010s, mm-hmm. where the millennials who were born in the late 80s, because that's the beginning of that generation, are finally getting into entertainment and are just referencing the stuff that they loved to better and mainly worse effects.
Yeah, that's why it was so effective, because it really did appeal to everyone.
It really did appeal to everyone. Everyone thought the 80s was such a... We were going through, a fucking terrible... When did Season 1 drop? I want to say it was, towards, the election.
Yeah, I think it was 2016.
Was it?
But the thing that made it so appealing to everyone was, I think, yes, the aesthetic is appealing to people who are into pop culture, and they're seeing...
Yeah, it's 2016. It dropped 2016.
People are seeing remakes of 80s movies, and they're like, I don't know, just like when we were 15 years old, we ate that shit up because it was...
Because we thought it was fucking cool.
Because I grew up watching, like, Indiana Jones and, like, fucking, like...
And I loved Ghostbusters.
Goonies and Ghostbusters,
like
yeah.
We
but then the parents love it because they lived through that.
They lived through that.
And then even little kids like it. Like, kids who are the age of the characters love it because they are the age of the characters.
Well, it's a bit more interesting,
like,
yeah, because to them they don't have like a oh, this is just like E.T. I love E.T. They don't have that.
They just...
To them it's very fresh and new.
They're gonna watch E.T. and they're gonna be like, oh, this is just like Stranger Things. It's like what we said in a previous episode. They just have that flipped mindset, which is totally fine.
It's totally fine, yeah. We're not shitting on them for that.
But, like, it's... You know, either they'll be wowed by seeing E.T. in the future and being like, oh my god, that's so cool that Stranger Things is an accumulation of all these different characters and ideas. Or they'll be like, what the fuck, I've seen this before, you know?
And also, it's the fact that Stranger Things is, like, probably the perfect... like amalgamation of pop culture wise what this generation kind of is. I very much subscribe to the thought that this generation is very much comprised of hand-me-downs. And I think that Stranger Things is like the perfect piece of evidence that I can point to that direction. It's one of our most popular shows of this generation and is made up of nothing but, I wouldn't even say homages, but like copy and pasted stuff from the from pre-established media. And the other thing about season 1 is that, like, I remember, like, texting my friends the day it came out. I was like, have you heard of the Stranger Things, like, thing? It's so cool, right? And I remember just recommending it to people word of mouth. But, like, I feel like I have a very personal connection with Stranger Things because I've seen it since, like, its conception, its genesis, to its bastardization now. But... And
justice for Stranger Things.
Justice for Stranger Things. I really feel like Stranger Things, we've said that before in the Hubie Halloween episode, that it really should have been a miniseries or an anthology series.
But the Duffer Bros don't fucking write their scripts out.
Oh.
Apparently.
Apparently. Please correct us if I'm wrong. I remember seeing this article that stated that the upcoming season 4 is the first time the Duffer Brothers have written their script for the season ahead of time. Also, the Duffer Brothers, I like to preface, the Duffer Brothers did not grow up in the 80s. And I'm going to bring that up later.
But...
because I feel like that fact is kind of the reason why I start having problems with it.
Well, I don't think that's problematic because someone our age could have made the same show. It's the fact that they grew up in a time where they were able to watch stuff from them. Okay,
I guess I'll get into it now. The reason why season 1 works really well is because it's a good collage piece of media. It's obviously taking media that has already existed and combining it together for its own original thing, much like how Tarantino does with his stuff. But where season 2 and season 3, where they really messed that up, is that it is very much in your face and it's telling you, oh, you know what we're referencing.
Yeah.
Even season 3 has that exact, like, shot-for-shot remake of, like, a Terminator 2 sequence. And it's just this... like, in your face, oh, it's really cool that we're referencing all this old media without adding anything new to it. And I feel like that comes from this millennial, nerd culture, this sub-millennial nerd culture, this almost, like, Ready Player One fucking mentality, which a lot of the problems I have with Stranger Things is very overlaps to the problems I have with Ready Player One. And... speaking of which, Steven Spielberg is one of the things I want to talk about, and I was thinking about a lot before this episode. But the Duffer Bros, I don't want to make any assumption on their character, but to me, it feels like they grew up in this nerd culture millennial thing where it was very cool to just know what Ghostbusters was, what Ghostbusters is, and it's this mentality that they just appreciate this media because it was...
Hold on. Are you sure you're not talking about our generation?
This is a bit of an overlap of Gen Z, yeah.
Yeah, because knowing what the Goonies was like my pride and joy in middle school.
Yeah.
Like
okay, but to be fair, you and me are that like section of Gen Z that kind of overlaps with the millennial culture, because we're just like we're raised on their media. There's people who are younger who.
But like my best friend saw Pulp Fiction when she was like a child. Like she grew up watching stuff like that, whereas like I didn't see it until a year ago for the first time.
That is crazy. Yeah, almost 2 years ago. To be fair, you were living on a rock.
Well, I could have watched it so many 3 years prior, but I just didn't want to.
It's just that it comes from this like nerd culture that like very much loves media, because yes, it's while these things are good, I don't think it comes from a very like looking at the media that they love in a cultural context sort of way, because I feel where they really lose how good of quote unquote homage they're paying to Spielberg is just like very much not having the same ideals that Spielberg had during those times, because I hate the simplification of Steven Spielberg, especially during his 80s and 90s run, where he's just seen as this popcorn the guy who makes family pictures and joyride things. No, Spielberg was this very much this for the time sort of experimental filmmaker who was much of a auteur, had a lot of his personality, his father issues, and was very much culturally and economically aware of the time period that he was living in, very much aware of the Reaganomics and the Big Brother fucking fear that loomed within the 80s. And Stranger Things, season 3 especially, that's more current in our memory. Season 2, briefly, we'll just say that I think it was all right.
I think it's stupid. I hated season 2. I really did, because I liked it at first. I liked the underlying plot line of like, oh, Will is back, and like
he finally gets screen time.
And he gets screen time. Yeah, he's a real character on the show now, which was really cool, and I loved his character, but I hate the direction they went with Elle.
Really?
Yeah,
I really liked it. I thought it was very interesting.
Yeah, I didn't like the introduction of all the different numbers.
Oh, that was terrible.
I hated it.
That's the first bad episode of that show. It makes her less special.
Yeah, it really did. And then I thought that they were just going to make a shit ton of spin-offs of every single character, and they probably will.
I think the reception to that episode was too bad to where they call it a backdoor pilot, where you try to implement spin-off characters in your main series, and if that becomes popular, you make the spin-off instead of making a pilot in itself.
But I just didn't care about any of them, and like they were really pushing it. They were like, oh, this character is gonna be like a mentor to Elle, but then she just is out of the picture. She just fucks off. She's out of the fucking picture and never comes back, and it just ruined the whole thing, because like, what the fuck happened with all those people? And it's just a lost plot line, and it...
I guess, all right.
I loved Stranger Things, the first season. I liked it up until that point, and then I just hated it.
I guess they also talk about how much they like paying homage to Stephen King, and just like Stephen King, they have really good build-up and terrible payoff.
That episode was like the Dr. Sleep of... because Elle was like Danny, but then all of a sudden all these other kids have The Shining. Like, oh.
Well, I guess you kind of I correct myself. I like the direction to do with Elle when she's solely in the cabin with Hooper.
Oh yeah,
I fucking love that shit.
I love
that. That's what I was thinking about.
Their relationship is great.
And then the fucking backdoor pilot, the Hot Topic fucking demographic episode popped up, and that's when Yeah, that's the first bad episode. That is really the first bad episode.
Demographic. I guess they were making a lot of money at Hot
They were
Topic.
really
so,
fucking, yeah, they
so
were.
They probably,
them Funko Pops are paying the bills for those fucking seasons.
I may or may not have bought Elle's jacket at Hot Topic when I was 15.
But anyways,
oh, God.
back to what I was saying about the 80s and Spielberg. The 80s was very much a time of just... conservatives like to think back in the 80s as a time of economic boom and like great wealth for this country. When in actuality, when you do watch films from the 80s, such as like, I'll fucking say Gremlins 2, fucking Gremlins 2, just, I'm not even saying this as like, oh, Gremlins 2 is like the best example of this. I'm just saying that something as simple, like something you wouldn't even expect to have like
anything to say.
Not saying that Gremlins 2 is a bad movie. It's fucking phenomenal.
It's so good.
It's so fucking funny.
Why is it so good?
Is that Gremlins 2, like the 80s excess and how like fucking rampant capitalism and this consumer culture is so fucking rampant that like Gremlins 2 was fucking making fun of it. And it's really sad that Gremlins 2 has more economic social awareness than Stranger Things Season 3 does.
Yeah. Yeah, Stranger Things Season 3 it's pushing that capitalist.
It really is.
Because, oh my fucking God.
I hate to call people this, but Season 3 really feels like a sellout season.
It is. The mall.
The mall is...
I forget what I said about it. I remember we were watching... I had this whole theory about the mall. What was it?
I think your theory was that they introduced the mall so they could have easier way to do product placement.
I think it was that, like, 11 was wearing these clothes that were new from the mall. And then, like...
And then they start showing up at Macy's and fucking...
Yeah, and then
H&M and shit like that.
And I think it was, like, I think Target legitimately had a line that really was Stranger Things. And then...
Which I want to talk about before we really get into Season 3. Before Season 3 happened, I was really wary because Stranger Things then started having fucking, like, Star Wars level fucking merchandising.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But the mall just took it to a new level because now these... What was... I don't
There was a
montage
of them going to the mall for the first time, and they're just, like, fully, like... partaking in this excess. They're smiling, buying this clothes that you can buy at JCPenney.
Yeah.
It feels like a commercial when they're in that montage. I forget. I don't know if it's the first time they go into the mall or not.
And they're literally just putting costumes on these characters for, like, having a job and then, like, buying new clothes. And now they're just totally different characters. So now you can buy a Funko Pop of Elle wearing something different.
Yeah,
like,
it really does.
It's
I mean, in some way, it is capturing how, like, a lot of fucking 80s media was soulless and just made to sell fucking product. But what really makes Season 3 just a bad homage to the 80s is that it fails to recognize Reaganomics and, like, the effect it had on, like, consumer culture. Again, Gremlins 2 has more social awareness of that, and that was a contemporary work of art. And I feel like something that was made, fucking 30 years later would have more awareness of that. Now, granted, should Stranger Things say something about, like, oh, fuck Reagan for taking us off the golden standard? Or, like, shit about their drug war? No, absolutely not. But I'm just saying, this again brings back to what the Coca thing, is when you bring back imagery and unintentionally, like, partake in the
characters have to be affected by those things because they were real.
Because they were real, they were much real. The fact that, like, you have characters just repeating the history that already happened of just consuming so much product really makes it feel like you just cared about the aesthetic and very much didn't have very much awareness of the 80s, which is where I think that's kind of the problem that the Duffer Brothers have, because, you know, again, I don't want to make assumption of them, but, like, I feel like if they were born in the 80s, they would have more social awareness of, like, the context behind the media that they love, besides just thinking that Ghostbusters and Terminator 2 are cool. And Stranger Things Season 3 really was made in the 80s, and it was made by someone who was very much aware of their social surroundings. The mall would not be this happy place. because it would paint it as a happy place first, and then it would reveal the fact that the mall is really just like kind of making people like stupid, very much like in Gremlins 2 when they have the smart building that's like.
But they did that.
The
mall was like the place where I forget what was happening.
There were some fucking Russians in there, which I'll get into that. I'll get into that. I've thought about this extensively. I know what I'm.
This just sucks.
I've thought of this extensively. The mall is bad only because it holds Russians / enemies of the state. Kind of feels like Red Scare propaganda. Very much like a lot of the art made in the 80s, which is understandable because we were in the Cold War. But the thing is that, again, I'm going to make the Gremlins 2 comparison, is that in Gremlins 2, when they show, like, characters, like, just being in the background or just indulging themselves with products, it very much does paint them as being, like, dumb, and you laugh at them because, they're fucking caring about, like, all this useless, like, food shit, and, like, and they're spending too much money, and, like, it's so crazy how, like, this type of society is kind of true to life, but it's not that extreme, ha ha ha, right? But it could get like that. That's what makes Gremlins 2 really smart, is that Gremlins 2 is kind of a really anti-capitalist film, and that's why, besides being really funny, it's really good. Is that Stranger Things Season 3 does is that it very much just, like I said before, it promotes this excess culture, and it doesn't, like, paint anyone for partaking in excess culture as, as being a detriment. It very much is saying,
like, this is just how your life is now.
This is how your life is now, and you should take part in it. And also, I think it's very hypocritical of that film. This is where I like film of that show and season, and just shows how much, like, the Duffer Brothers just, like, missed the mark of, like, the stuff they love. Is that in season 3 there's a movie theater within the mall, and the characters sneak into watch Day of the Dead, a George Romero film, which is a sequel to Dawn of the Dead, and Dawn of the Dead takes place within a mall, and is like the fucking, like...
You mean Day of the Dead?
Day of the Dead takes place in an underground bunker.
Oh.
But even then, Day of the Dead is very much reactionary to how, like, Reagan's fucking presidency was. It very much has a critique on authoritarian, like, politicians and whatnot, and this, like, excess of the army. Again, reactionary to the Cold War. But Dawn of the Dead especially has just so much anti-capitalist consumer imagery. It literally takes place in the mall to make the statement that consumers are nothing but dead fucking brain zombies, which is, like, mindlessly walking around shopping places. And obviously the fucking Duffer Brothers saw that because it shows them watching Dawn of the Dead, and then it shows them watching Day of the Dead, which is a sequel to Dawn of the Dead. And they've obviously seen it, so it just surprises me that they love this piece of media, and they quote unquote try to pay homage to something that relates to it by, like, spewing a message that almost feels like counter or reactionary towards that, like, message of the time.
Do you think that's the point of it, though? Do you think they were trying to be a bit ironic? Yeah. No,
I don't think so, because of those characters, again, they don't ever paint any character for being, like, dumb or, like, suffering, or we never get a moment to at least laugh at their excess or, like...
Exactly. I think that maybe they're making the point that consumerism is not bad, and that's what built today. Like, that's still a part of our society today. That is very much what drives us. But, like, they're just pointing at this movie that was living in the time when that actually started, and they saw it as this horrifying thing. Like, do you think that the Duffer Bros are pro-capitalist?
The Duffer Bros are actually these pro-Reagan fucking supporters.
I mean...
In that case, I would dislike that season way much more than if that's the intent.
But we just don't know. Like, we don't even know if they were the ones who wanted to put that movie in their show.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we don't even know... I mean, they did write it, but, like... What did their producers want? What did they?
Or maybe
want
they just wrote it in without even thinking about it like that.
Yeah.
Which again brings my problem into it, is that like it feels like very much they just love the media not for what it's trying to say and just looking at a very surface level.
Yeah.
And that's why them paying homage to said media doesn't work, and especially for Spielberg, because it doesn't pay attention to the subtext and what it really stood for.
Yeah.
I also want to talk about like they also have such a nothing to say about the Cold War. Here's the thing with Stranger Things season 3 and how it depicts the Cold War, is that, and it goes beyond it being Red Scare propaganda. It has the threat of the Russians.
Wait a minute. I totally forget. Am I remembering this correctly? The doctor is Russian?
The doctor is Russian, but yeah.
And like everyone who works for them is Russian, or no?
What do you mean everyone who works for them?
All the people who like were involved with L.
No.
Those
are Americans. The Russians were like they were using them all as like a cover up.
Or what?
For like their alien experiment. Not alien, but like to get the underworld fucking underworld fucking the Upside Down to get into in contact with the Upside Down in order to imitate Americans, because remember
wasn't there something about like something coming from the hospital? Was that season 2?
Yeah, the hospital season 2.
This shit sucks.
I want you to put in. I don't want you to cut out all of that of us just like trying to try to like figure out what was and wasn't season 3, because it proves my bigger issue with the show, and it goes beyond season 3, is that
season 1 stands out so much.
Season 1 stands out so much. Season 2 and 3 are just repeat of the same fucking storyline.
They are.
They are.
Because you can't do anything else.
You could. You really could.
Well, at this point, they can't.
They really can't. It's just a repeat. Yeah, it fucking sucks now.
And they made it so that...
It should have been an anthology series or a mini-series.
Yeah, they made it so that the threat is never going to go away.
Uh-huh.
And so the conflict
yeah.
and the storyline is never going to go away. It just... Like, honestly, if they did a spin-off with one of those random characters, or if they just started way the fuck over, like, fucking...
Stranger Things, but in the 70s.
No, like Watchmen, like, just do it all over again.
Just do it all over
again.
again.
Don't recast, but just... Maybe recast if you want to. I don't care. I really don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck. Just make it better, because it sucks.
It does suck. But back to what I was saying about...
the cliffhanger of season 1 is so good. Anyway.
It really is. It really fucking is. But back to what I was saying about Stranger Things season 3's depiction of the Cold War, is that... Here's the thing with Analogies, is that one-to-one analogies can be good, but most of the time they're kind of boring, because they just like, at a point when something is such a one-to-one allegory for something else, you kind of just think to yourself, why the fuck didn't you just like outwardly make the allegory just the thing it's supposed to represent, instead of like...
What are you talking about?
Because the upside...
because the Russians have a different objective than destroying Americans.
They have the objective of destroying American values and whatnot, but they have the analog for McCartneyism and like the Red Scare through the fucking the under I always want to say underground for some reason, the upside down fucking monsters copying civilians, and that was very much like deals with McCarthyism.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I wouldn't have an issue with that one-to-one analog if that was just the sole threat. It's the fact that you put Russians into it, which, like, it's really weird having a one-to-one analog for Russians when you already have Russians be a part of your conflict. That was like if for some fucking reason in Lord of the Rings, well, they had... I was like, if Lord of the Rings, which, yeah, I know J.R.R. Tolkien fucking hates allegory, but fucking let's subscribe to the death of the author thing, and we're gonna use what's like how a lot of people like to read Lord of the Rings, where it's an analog for World War I and II. It would be like if you had the Allied powers also be in the world of Lord of the Rings. It would be it'd be very pointless, and you would just, and at that point you would just be like, why don't you just fucking write about World War I and II instead of making an allegory? I understand that J.R.R. Tolkien may or may not have intentionally written those allegories, but it's just an example I was bringing up.
And to the defense of Stranger Things, they were living in the world where the Russians were there. Like, they're just... Listen, I don't know shit about the Cold War. I know, like, the very surface level. I don't know if there were actual Russian spies here. I don't think there were, but, like, this seems like a cartoon version of what the Cold War is.
It is a very cartoon version of what the Cold War is. It doesn't have anything to say about it, and it doesn't tackle, like, how badly fucked up the Cold War, like, affected our economy. It also doesn't have anything to say about the proxy wars and how, like, useless or, like, fucked up it was. Or anything to say about them in general, not even, like, shit that, like, I would want to agree with, because at least then I would be making a statement. Here's the thing. Stranger Things Season 3 doesn't have to have this underlying subtext about, like, how fucked up the fucking Vietnam War was and how it was a useless war and we only got into it for, like, a petty proxy war for Russia. No, it doesn't have to fucking say that shit. It really doesn't. But it's the fact that you have such a political moment, such a, like, heavy thing that's so definingly, like, shaped that generation and decade.
And you're so clearly showing it.
And you're showing it. And you're not showing anything besides the fact that the Russians were the bad guys.
Yeah,
it feels like American propaganda.
It's just playing into the stereotypes.
It's just playing into the Red Scare McCarthyism propaganda.
And it's stupid.
And it doesn't fucking pay good homage to the people they're trying to pay homage to.
They could have done the same conflict of, like, these monsters are taking over individuals on the surface.
I mean, at that point it would be Invasion of the Body Snatchers remake, but, like, still.
But, like, that's what the whole series is. That's what the whole series of Stranger Things has been. It's just been, quote unquote, paying homage. To
here's the thing.
things.
When it comes to homages, Season 1 very much feels like the way Tarantino does homages, where he picks, like, very, like, small things and even things that are a bit obscure and, like, reappropriates it, not in a bad term, because reappropriation is really just, like, a neutral term. It's just that
it's just
more examples that we point out are negative. It's inspiration. And then Season 3 and a bit of Season 2 does quote-unquote homages how, like, fucking Todd Phillips did in Joker with Taxi Driver and King of Comedy, where it just copy and pastes scenes.
Are we talking about that now?
No, we're not. That's gonna be a 3-hour episode.
3-parter right there.
But having Season 3 just be just Red Scare propaganda very much goes against to what a lot of the creators of the media that the Duffer Brothers love, because I'm just going to bring out one example. Lucas was very critical of, like, the Cold War.
Yeah.
He has this interview.
He had the resistance were the good guys.
Yeah.
Like, the people fighting against power were the good guys.
Yeah. But fucking George Lucas has this interview where someone asks him a question about, like, making films going through the Cold War. And he said that people would come up to him and ask him, was like, well, aren't you glad that you're an American filmmaker because you have so much liberties with making film? And then Lucas said that he knew a lot of Russian filmmakers who have way much more liberties with their art. It's the only thing they had to look out for was criticizing the government.
The way it is in Hollywood, it's so strict
It's so strict.
To the point where actors can't have the same name as another actor.
Yeah.
Like, it's so ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. And it goes beyond Lucas. Spielberg, again, wasn't, like, outspoken about this Reaganomic thing. And to just have this such Hollywood way of making this TV show and celebrating excess and having Red Scare propaganda, you very much go against the message that a lot of the media that you're paying homage to was saying in the first place. And that's why I think it really does feel as an homage or a love letter. It understands the subtext and just disagrees with it,
and is like trying to be ironic sometimes,
but it feels very flat in its face, and there's not a hint of like
the way that this story, the whole show is set up. It's like you're supposed to be taking it seriously.
Yeah.
So if they wanted to do anything ironic, it would just it just wouldn't fit in.
Or B, you never understood the subtext and you just like
slapped it in there.
You just slapped it in there. Or C, you really did understand the subtext and you agree with it and you just became a sellout. So you can get more money. Yeah. And Burger King paid a really good hunk of the bill.
Fucking God. Can we just talk about how fucking stupid
the upside down Whopper?
The upside down Whopper was? Like, I can't tell you how many times I've opened a burger and it was already upside down. Like, there's nothing special about a damn burger that's upside down. Alright.
But yeah, the product. But like the product placement. I also like to take the opportunity to talk about product placement because in season 1, there's one notable moment of product placement is when Steve goes over to have dinner with Nancy. No. They go over to Barb's parents' house, and they have KFC center fucking frame. And then Steve goes like,
"Oh, really?
Yeah, I like KFC. Finger looking good."
No, they did not.
They did. Yeah, I remember because that's in season 1.
That's so stupid.
That's very stupid.
How did they get away with
that moment does have a hint of like being ironic because it does feel like it was like, oh, I have to fucking say this because they're paying the bills. But product placement is not just like if I see a character with a Coke can, I don't fucking immediately like, fucking capitalism is the disease that ruins art.
But when they're like,
I'm not like that.
Every person on screen, it's like a Renaissance painting, and they're all looking at it, and they're all pointing at it, and they're
like when a character simply holds a product, I don't think it's product placement, even though it may or may not be.
Yeah.
But when a character very much mentions the name of a product or is shown enjoying the product a lot, it does feel very like your capitalistic intent is way much more prominent in the artistic intent, especially during that fucking scene in season 3 where they talk about Coke and Coke Classic and Coke New Formula.
Yeah, it's stupid.
It's so terrible.
It just becomes a part of the plot.
It becomes a part of the plot, and then it just feels like you're just watching a commercial.
And
who the fuck wants to watch a commercial? You want to watch a fucking narrative.
And it's Netflix.
And it's Netflix.
We don't want commercials. That's why we are on Netflix. That's why we are paying Netflix to watch this damn show.
Granted, yes, product placement does pay the fucking bills, but like, you have like
be
I think
artists about it.
Be smart about it. You have to draw fucking like line in the sand.
And when it takes you out of the experience, and also, like, the mall is enough to show me the idea of consumerism, but then this is just putting it in the spotlight to the point where it's just so corny and just annoying. Like, no one wants to watch it.
I just had a fucking breakthrough. Holy shit. I was thinking about trying to
Go on.
The fucking Russian character, Bob, right? Or whatever the fuck his actual name was, right? He's this communist scientist who is painted to be like in awe of like, oh, how big like a Slurpee bottle is, and like enjoys fucking Burger King and loves the fucking carnival and getting a big stuffed teddy bear. They turned the one fucking character that's a stand-in for communism and turned him into loving like capitalistic excess.
Were they being smart?
Maybe it's just them being like, fuck you, Venezuela. Just like how communism doesn't work or whatever. But yeah, that just drives into the fact that like season 3 really does feel like a fucking like scummy capitalistic like excess pro-Reaganism pro Reaganomics art media piece.
Anything else to add to that title?
Jay gets so fucking angry about capitalism that he ends up being stupid.
That's good clickbait.
Okay, now we're gonna make the rest of the podcast me regurgitating economic theory.
No, I have something to ask because I blocked this whole season out of my mind, season 3, but I, like, obviously, because I don't remember shit that happened, but, did you ever watch the last episode?
Okay, now the fucking people who love season 3 are gonna fucking be like, well, how can you talk about all of season 3 when you haven't even watched the last episode?
Hear me out,
Cameron,
we
were watching
enraged.
season 3. We were so enraged that we just, like, at the last episode, we didn't even bother pressing play because we were like, fuck it.
Well, we planned on watching it.
It's just we never had the motivation to get around to doing it.
But every time you asked me if I wanted to watch it, I would just say no because I don't want to watch it. It's like Futurama right now. It's just like, we're going to have to finish it eventually.
We are going to have to finish it eventually. I do want to do that Futurama episode.
Look forward to that.
All right, now we should start talking about Stranger Things season 3 because besides politics and socioeconomics, there's more to criticize in that season. So for example, I fucking hate that they make Steve a complete and total fucking idiot in season 3. I get it, he wasn't supposed to be smart adult, like he wasn't. They turned him to fucking Homer Simpson in season 3.
Steve is the one who works at the ice cream shop?
Yes.
Okay.
Steve was, like, realistically just, like, this jock, like, stereotype, like, somewhat realistically, because, like, yeah, he needed help with essays, but, like, in season 3, they just really make him a fucking doofus.
Yeah.
And I hate it.
It is fun to watch those scenes where he's working. I get why people are so obsessed with those characters. Like, I get it. It's fun and it's cute, but...
It's cute. And also, like, this is very a personal opinion that I'm about to spew out. I really hate the humor in season 3. I think it's just not funny.
I don't remember any humor. So...
It very much feels like Marvel humor. I fucking hate it. I hate that fucking Marvel has, like, killed, like, the comedy genre.
Why? Wait, what?
Because Hollywood doesn't make comedy movies anymore. There's no... Like, they rarely ever make a movie that's just a comedy. It has to be an action comedy. Like Marvel movies. It has to be...
Like Shazam.
Like Shazam. Shazam's a good movie.
I don't know anything about it. I just know that it's a comedy...
Yeah.
Hero film. Like, it's...
Yeah. And like, yeah, that doesn't make those films inherently bad. It's just... I kind of feel like...
sad that...
It's sad.
But at the same time, now, I feel like... I don't know if it's just that I'm older and, like, these things are genuinely things that I watch, but I feel like comedy specials and watching stand-up is really popular.
Oh yeah, Netflix really popularized that with our generation,
which is great. Like,
it's great. Yeah,
I think it's good to have the extremes of every genre.
It really is.
Like, it's cool to see stuff like that. But
yeah, but the sad thing is that we're not gonna get another Animal House or another Blues Brothers.
Jay, Hubie Halloween.
No, but here's the thing with Hubie Halloween is that stuff like Adam Sandler stuff, like, even if we don't think it's funny, like the purely comedy movies go straight to streaming. Adam Sandler has, like, signed an exclusive deal to fucking Netflix. We're not gonna see another Adam Sandler movie that's not a fucking him taking on a serious role in a theater again. I mean, whether, like, granted, you and me weren't gonna fucking pay a fucking ticket to go see Hubie Halloween, but it's just
speak for yourself. I'll buy $30 tickets for both of us to go to the ultra screen.
But it's just the fact that we're never gonna have another Blazing Saddles be on the big screen. That's, I mean, that when I say it like that, it sounds a bit too pessimistic. But that's just the nature of comedy, of the comedy genre in Hollywood. How it feels like.
And right now, this is something that I think I learned in my film class in high school. When politics are bad, economics are bad, everything's a mess, people want to watch horror movies. And, like, horror movies do really well in that climate because watching a horror movie makes you feel better about the life that you're living outside of that. And it's true because, yes, I love watching Pan's Labyrinth and The Big Lebowski because they make me laugh. They are good escapism and just fun to watch. But after that, I'm just like, I wish I was Ophelia. Like, I wish I was so invested in dudism that I didn't give a shit about what was going on right now. Like, I that's just how it is with stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And you watch Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
No. You watch Eraserhead, right? And then you sit back and you're like, God, I don't have
a fucking kid.
Thank God I don't have a child. Thank God I don't have a terrible partner. Thank God I am not living in this surrealist, like, nightmarish hellscape. Like, sometimes it feels terrible to just, like, be here, but at least it's not that bad. Yeah. You know, at least I'm not being chased by a killer with a chainsaw. Like, anyway, what the fuck was I talking about?
I don't know what we're talking about. Should we wrap up? Thank you for listening to this episode.
It's been a strange time.
Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you disagree with us on anything, or do you want to call us dirty commies, direct it towards me, because Cameron doesn't identify as a communist.
Until I get my tattoo.
Until you get every single tattoo. Oh my god.
But like, argue with us in the comments. That sounds like a really fun thing.
That sounds epic. Yeah.
If you're listening on Spotify, go to YouTube and fight with us in the comments. Anyway, it's been a good time. Bye.